So what video topic idea can I come up with that will make everybody angry at me at the same time? The answer might surprise you. I got a new shield for my microphone. Oh god, hold on, hear me adjust it. I've got a new shield for my microphone that makes it so there's not as many mouth sounds anymore. That is to say, popping and sounds won't sound as severe, but you can still hear the inside of my mouth. You're welcome for that. And, well, I think I'm just gonna go and I'm gonna listen to this back, and I'm just gonna hear explosion and death and 70 casualties of this video, so I might as well just get into it. So, people are maybe a little weird about anime, and, okay, anime is a word for Japanese animation. It can mean anything from Studio Ghibli to Osomatsu-sen and everything in between and outside of those bounds. It's known by some to be a very hypersexual form of media. There is a lot of content in it completely unsuitable for children, which is different from most Western animation, which happens to be geared towards children most of the time, apart from particular adult cartoons. Think Family Guy, you know, other examples. Rick and Morty, you have most likely seen anime in one way or another. Or you could be a huge anime fan and clicked on this video to try and roast me in the comments, and I promise I don't dislike anime. In fact, that's something I want to clarify right off the bat. There seems to be a lot of people who think that it's extremely important to identify whether or not you're into anime, which is really bizarre to me as someone who is late to the game, so to say. Like I said, anime is just Japanese animation. Saying, I like anime is like saying, I like movies. It's such a wide genre, like just animated content made in Japan that could absolutely be any subgenre in a ton of different mediums, and to say, I like anime or I dislike anime seems weirdly non-specific and kind of reductive. That is to say, it just doesn't feel fair to be so for or against it. It's just animation from Japan. I don't like all Western cartoons. I think a lot of them are pretty bad. I feel the same way about animated content from any other part of the world. Like, it's just, I like it or I don't like it. Doesn't matter where it's from. The thing is, animation in Japan is an extremely productive and thriving industry, compared even to animation in America, which is sort of its main, I guess, buddy when it comes to big animated content. There's an absolutely incomprehensible amount of anime. Therefore, considering how much of it there is, it's also fair to say that there are more bad examples of it than any other type of animated content anywhere else in the world. That isn't because there's a lot of bad writers over there, it's just fully characteristic of the fact that there's so much of it. A lot of it is going to be bad, especially since it's made so quickly and almost always on crunch time. However, there are, of course, very good examples of it in large quantities as well. It's just cartoon creators creating cartoons, and some of it is going to suck, and some of it is going to be great, just like anywhere else. If someone says, I like cartoons, that should be generally assumed to mean that they like animated cartoons from anywhere and for any possible audience of people. So, what do I mean when I say people are kind of weird about anime? To get right down to it, I think people make way too many excuses for anime. There are things called tropes, a common or overused theme or device. Anime can be extremely, almost unbearably egregious when it comes to tropes. And that's because it seems to work with people. When something works, gets a lot of people interested, it's going to be used again and again and again and again until people are so used to seeing it that they'll notice its absence more than its presence. Anime uses tropes so frequently that the words anime and trope can hold hands and fall in love and get married and have children with the exact same body type. Now, there isn't anything inherently wrong with a trope. They're used everywhere, in writing and storytelling. It's pretty much impossible to escape from them. There's a difference between employing them intentionally and employing them unintentionally, but the idea of a trope is just fine. We all use them, okay? See, the problem is when the trope that is being used is just straight up god-awful, subjectively sometimes, but ethically not good other times. And yet it appears over and over and over again, just like its brethren. There's a lot of this in anime, and I'm not going to bring up any super specific examples, but most of them surround women and children, and you could probably fill in the blanks yourself. You can just imagine I brought up the trope that would make you the angriest possible if I criticized it, and then we could skip to step 3. I feel like there are too many people excusing these tropes for the most bizarre reasons I could possibly think of. One of these things has to do with body types, specifically female assets. You know, the assets. Yeah, they're maybe a little bit too big, a little too often, especially compared to the size of every other part of their bodies. I've seen criticism of this wavered for the simple fact of, some people have bodies like that, it's representation. Yeah, I'm aware. However, even pretending like that's actually something the people designing these characters care about, don't you think we maybe, possibly a little bit, have had enough of that representation by now? Representation of the same thing over and over again, almost exclusively, is bad representation. I can represent as many skinny, pale-skinned boys and skinny, pale-skinned hourglass girls as I want, and I'm sure there are people who look like that, but the fact that it would be the only thing I'm showing is what makes it annoying and what leads to the idea that it's just being fetishized or placed on a pedestal. It would be nice to have these kinds of bodies shown in a completely unsexualized context, please, and thank you. You know, there are ways to do that. Another one is the thing about kids. I'm not going to go into detail. If you're familiar at all with this topic, you already know what I'm talking about. The fact that these tropes exist is not just a matter of different culture. Yes, part of it is because of that, because hypersexualization of things that are childlike or otherwise normal situations is enough of a problem that it echoes into anime and makes it look more okay than it is, potentially further perpetuating common and harmful actions in Japan that cement it as technically part of the culture. However, this is not just a thing from Japan. In fact, hypersexual tropes happen to be so prevalent in part because of the audiences they're trying to reach outside of Japan, and a large part of that audience happens to be Western. Meaning, not specifically Japanese, meaning no, it's not just cultural, it's because a lot of weirdo freaks are watching this stuff, making excuses for it, saying it's not as bad as it looks, or it's okay because it's just a trope and it doesn't mean anything, and it's still fine to watch if you ignore those bits. Just because it's legal in another country does not make it okay. It doesn't even make it okay to most of the people who actually live there. There are a lot of people who like to excuse specific tropes because of the idea of it being of cultural significance and not wanting to be disrespectful. However, most of these things they're excusing happen to be sexual in nature. There are examples of anime that appeal much more to Japanese culture specifically and are often intimidated by the fact that most Western audiences may not understand the context. It's extremely important to feel safe to put your own culture in the works you create, but stuff that is legitimately harmful isn't an innocent expression of culture that should be respected. It's something that people need to think critically about. Being from a different culture does not make somebody incapable of understanding things that are morally wrong. It's just a matter of legality at that point. People are making what they're legally allowed to make, regardless of whether or not it hurts real people, and that doesn't mean that it's okay or defensible just because it's different. The people making the harmful stuff know exactly what they're doing. They know why it's wrong. They're not idiots, and you're doing them a favor by assuming that they are. They're appealing to a large demographic that is attracted to anime specifically because it has so much of what they're looking for. Most of the people I met who are big anime fans actively cringe through all of the fan service just to get to legitimately good writing. I've been in this situation as well. And just so we're clear, no, things that aren't okay when it's a young girl are still not okay when it's a young boy. So yeah, people are a little weird about anime. You don't even necessarily have to be horrible to excuse these things, you just have to think it's normal, because you've already seen so many examples of it. But it's not normal, it's not good writing, and it makes everybody in the industry look bad when people go into it thinking that this is what it's all really about. If you're a big anime fan, please continue enjoying what's good about what you're watching. I do that too, even when I don't agree with a ton of the rest of it. I just try to be critical about those parts instead of ignoring them or making excuses for them. Making excuses for things that are just there for the people who are into gross stuff is somehow even more bizarre to me than just being unapologetically gross. Try to be fully aware of what the intentions of the writers are, don't pretend they're ignorant, and don't be afraid to share your thoughts, okay? The situation isn't, this is just what anime is like. Sometimes, things are just bad, and you're allowed to say that they're bad. It doesn't matter that it's also been done before then, and it doesn't matter that it's going to happen afterwards either. You can acknowledge when something sucks in an otherwise good or unobtrusive thing. That's how we get things to improve over time. Feel free to speculate on my reasons for this drawing. And Hey, more strides are being made every day to try and improve things in Japan for people who are often ignored in favor of constant sexualization. LGBT plus individuals, women, etc., and anyone who is fetishized and taken advantage of by the tropes people like to excuse. We need to talk about it to help it improve, but unfortunately, sometimes when people from Japan try to artistically bring up the issue of over-sexualization, people over in Western countries somehow use it to perpetuate the same problem. Be aware, have critical thinking skills, have fun. Thank you for watching my video. I was warned that there might be outcries of rage if I post anything, mildly criticizing anime or just talking about anime or really, anything in general having to do with anime. But I don't have that many subscribers right now, so if there's a time to talk about it, it should probably be right now. Again, depending on the response to this kind of video, I might post more stuff like this if I find something to talk about, like a show that I really want to bring more attention to, just maybe more positive things. I like to kind of curate a positive environment. I mean, what you put in is probably what you get out of it, right? But otherwise, goodbye. Get out.